Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar this morning. Just give everyone a minute or so and then we'll get started. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. This morning, we're going to be having a webinar on managing a remote workforce with Janet Salopek and Cindy Sadu with Salopek and Associates. So as always, I'll let them present and then we'll do questions and answers after. And later today, I should have up the PowerPoint and the recording of the presentation. So I will turn it over to Janet and Cindy. Thank you both for doing this for us today.
Thanks, Joe, and welcome everybody. And on behalf of Cindy and I'd just like to say we're happy to meet you virtually online. We're excited about the topic, managing a remote workforce. But you know what I'm thinking as I prepared for the webinar today, and as Joe had sent us the list of people that were participating, I'm thinking that some of you probably are already managing to a certain extent a remote workforce, because I'm thinking that your field staff work remotely. And so as such, I'm thinking that some of you probably already are using some techniques and processes that help you manage them. So hopefully today what we can do is build on that. But you know, today is a different day. I mean, we've got COVID and we've been working for a month and a half for those that are at head office in a very different environment now. And it's not only just about working remotely, but it's about working remotely in a really challenging environment, because COVID-19 has created a lot of uncertainties for everybody. And your employees, many of them are probably scared and uncertain. And so that makes our jobs as managers all that more difficult. But what we're here to do today, Cindy and I, is to present to you and give you some hope, some tips and techniques as you manage the remote workforce. So on behalf of Cindy and I, welcome. And I'm the president and founder of Salopek and Associates, and Cindy is a HR generalist that work on our team. So what we're going to do is we are going to turn our cameras off, and then we'll get started. And I'm going to take the first half of the presentation, and Cindy's going to take the second half. So we'll turn off our cameras now, and we'll start walking through the presentation. So a little bit about Salopek and Associates, just so you have a bit of background on us. We've been around since 2006, and we do work across Canada with a focus on HR, board governance, and strategy. And the most of our team do work remotely. We have a physical presence in Calgary, Regina, Ottawa, and Toronto. And I'll just have to say that, you know, COVID-19, even though we do work remotely, has brought a lot of new insights and learnings for our team. And I think, you know, it's actually made us better at a team that works remotely. And we're starting to do things differently as a result of COVID. And I'll just have to say, as a leader, I'm learning lots. So we're anxious to share some of those learnings with you. So much of what we're going to cover in the next hour is really, to a large extent, common sense. It's a reminder, to a large extent, what we should be doing as managers, whether we're working remotely or not. And I have to say, though, given what we're faced with COVID and the circumstances that we're working remotely now, it's really, really important for us to step up as managers and make sure that we're following through on some of those things that we know we should always do anyways. So what are some of the things that we're going to cover off in today's webinar? We're going to talk about the common challenges of managing remote employees. How do we motivate and engage people who are remote? We're going to talk about performance management because it's critical as we work remotely and as our role in management. We're going to talk a bit about health and wellness, and that's when we're going to switch it over to Cindy, and she'll talk about health and wellness and also some recommendation for our employees. But you know, as managers, we're also employees, so these tips are going to be helpful for us all. During the session, if you've got any questions, as I said, Joe's going to be collecting them, so feed them through the Q&A, and we'll have about 15 to 20 minutes at the end of the webinar to address your questions. And as I mentioned, I'm going to cover off the first half of the presentation, and Cindy will cover off the second half. So in the middle of March, our world changed, and many of our office staff were sent home, and your field staff workers in essential services probably had to start social distancing as they did their work. So, you know, a different working environment for your head office staff, but also for your field staff. It really disrupted them on what they knew as normal, or what they've always known as normal. And so this has impacted them on how they communicate and really the relationships that they have with their team and with you as their manager. So more so than ever, it's really critical important that you foster a strong culture and continue to build on any culture that may have existed prior to COVID. And that culture means that it has to include trust, and trust will encourage and also help you motivate and engage your people. But the foundation really is a foundation of trust. And you know what? That's not easy, you know, given that we're in a crisis, and trust is usually built over a period of time. While for our head office people who we sent home middle of March, you know, it was immediate, it was fast. So if we didn't have that, you know, foundation of trust, we really have to work on it now. But for some of us, and many of us, hopefully trust was built. And so what we're going to be talking about now is just how do you continue to build that? And what I really like to suggest is you really need to be intentional on how you manage your people, keeping mindful that without trust, that employer and employee relationship will most likely won't work. So again, I really can't emphasize enough about building trust and trusting your people. So not working in a traditional work environment brings its own set of challenges, and the major obstacles are really around motivating and engaging the team that works outside the field, or even that works outside the office, or even within your field team. And because with your field team, their day has changed as well, or their environment has changed as well. As I said before, they're having to social distance and they're not connecting as often. So really think about it. When many of us go to the office or out of the field with our colleagues, you know, what energizes us? Seeing other people energize us. And now though, when we get up in the morning and we go to the coffee pot, we don't see our colleagues, and we might wonder, you know, is there anyone else working out there? So it's really hard to get that energy and that sense of engagement about our work and about our teammates. So both managers and their employees often express concern about the lack of face-to-face interaction as we work remotely. Managers also worry that, you know, their employees, you know, are they working? And are they delivering? And so there's a lot of uncertainty. Employees struggle and probably do struggle with reduced access to you as a manager, and they're missing that communication. Before they could just walk down the hall, or they could ask you to grab a lunch. Your field employees, could grab lunch with their teammates. They could grab lunch with you. This is all missing now. So they may wonder, whether their managers really understand what they're doing, what their needs are, and that they may, they're obviously going to be anxious because they've got all these questions, and they don't see you daily to check in. Many employees, especially those that were working from the office, struggle with a lack of access to information. And they wonder, and they may wonder, how do I find things? And this can be a frustration for them, and also create anxiousness. They'll be anxious. Newly remote workers are often surprised by the added time and effort it takes to actually find information, and especially if they've never worked from home before. And your organization may not have been set up, to have shared drives and to get information. So it's going to be, there's going to be a little chaos and uncertainty there. Even getting simple answers to questions. Salopec, for example, we work remotely all the time, but even this has been a challenge for us, because what we're finding with COVID is that information is changing daily, and we're finding it hard to keep our information up to date on our shared drive. And so we also notice, even though I said we're used to working remotely, that it's a challenge. And it also, it amazes me at times how long it actually takes me to find information. And, I feel frustrated at times. I think, why can't I find it? Why can't I find this? This should be easy. It's not. And that creates feeling of inadequacy. And your staff are feeling this. We feel it. I'm sure you feel it. Your staff are feeling it. And what that actually, this inadequacy, we know, can contribute to social isolation. It can feel lonely at times, and loneliness is one of the most common complaints about moving towards remote work, with employees, really missing that informal social interaction of an office setting, and again, that added frustrations of finding information and getting connected. Over a longer period of time, isolation can actually cause employees to feel less belonging to the organization, less connected, less engaged, and really decreasing levels of job satisfaction. I'm going to actually ask Cindy, because I think she has a perspective here, to talk a little bit about distractions at home. Cindy, can you just share with us some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. So like many of you on the call today, I've been personally dealing with this challenge in terms of distractions. I'm working from home with my children who are also home, and these children need to be cared for, they need to be fed, they need to be kept busy, and now also they need to be supported with their learning at school. So I've been struggling with this a lot since we've moved to working from home solely. And so week by week, we're sort of finding our groove. We're trying to make it work. We've tried to stick to some schedules. And, sometimes it's not ideal. So, the kids may have more TV time than I would normally have them have, or they may have to step up and help with chores or taking care of their younger siblings. So it's not ideal, but again, we don't have a choice. It's a real challenge, and we realize that it's going to be our new reality for sort of the near future. So yeah, it's definitely been a challenge, and it's something that we've all had to sort of juggle and work with.
Thanks, Cindy, for sharing that perspective with us. Keeping remote employees engaged and aligned with your culture can be tough. Think about your field staff. What do you do for them to ensure that they feel your culture and that they feel connected? You're probably going to apply some of the same practices with your office employees who are working remotely. And it's really important to figure out how to make use of the right processes, employee engagement and employee engagement activities. So giving this some thoughts is really important. Whatever you do to engage your people, what's really, really important is communication, especially when you're not seeing them on a day-to-day basis or face-to-face. We'd like to suggest that you ask your employees how they like to be communicated to. Once you have this feedback, outline some clear expectations and set some parameters about how best to communicate with each of them and when. So really ask for that input. In our group at Salopec, it's interesting on how many members of our team like to be communicated differently. Some like random, unexpected phone calls to check in and see how they're doing. However, others on the team don't want you to call them randomly and have made it clear that they really appreciate a heads up if you're going to give them a call or send them a text to arrange a convenient time. Because as Cindy said, you know, they might be juggling kids that could be doing other things. And so they really want that heads up before you actually just call them. In our team, it's the job of our consulting service manager and myself to connect with we have a team of 20. And by doing this and, you know, just talking to them, we know who likes what, and we try very hard to respect what works for individual members. And what I have to say, though, it's everything but consistent. It's all over the map. So paying attention to that is really important. Being careful and open with your employees and asking them like what hours of work best for them. So checking in with them to see when they will be working and maybe when they may have to take some downtime, and when might be the best time to reach them. And as I mentioned before, everybody is challenged with, many people are challenged with childcare. So paying attention to that is really important. So setting expectations for all team members will really also help your ambitious employees from becoming burnt out. Without clear boundaries that the office life provides, you're going to find that your real go-getters may have work days that never end. So setting themselves, and that actually may be setting themselves up for exhaustion and resentment. So it's really important as leaders then to let your team know also when you're going to be available and when you'll contact them. So again, a two-way street there. We also recommend that you schedule frequent meetings to touch base, one-on-one and also team meetings over the phone, but also through video conferencing to discuss, you know, your current projects, your workloads, objectives, and see how employees are feeling and if they need any other support. So really important to do those check-ins. This will help your employees feel valued, and it'll give them a sense of accountability and connectedness to your business and to, of course, your team. We would also like to suggest that you use communication apps and programs that allow easier ways to connect, like a chat function. So employees working at home can quickly connect with either managers or co-workers to ask questions, check in, solve problems, or just to say hi. And you know, these apps, there's a number of out there. There's Slack, there's Zoom, there's Microsoft Teams, etc. But what I think is really important is use an app that they know that you may already be using. We keep it simple. We text, and a lot of our team like texting, and so that's the way we do a quick check-in. Set expectations around the use of different technologies. For example, letting your people know you'll be using video conferencing daily, maybe in meetings, but maybe using instant messaging or texting for when something urgent comes up, so they know what to expect and what to be checking, whether they need to be checking which app. Remember, again, to keep it simple and use tools that they're familiar with. Be sure your remote employee have all the information they need. We talked about this in a previous slide to do their tasks at home and where to locate this information. Be sure to provide information to employees regularly on anything that's pertinent to their work. So communicate, communicate, communicate. Right now, as I mentioned, we're using a shared drive, and really there's lots of shared drives out there that are inexpensive and available. And to be quite honest, I don't know what we do without our shared drive. So really encourage you to look at that as an option as you work with your people and making sure that they've got the information they need. Also, be transparent as you can with current business challenges. People are afraid right now. They don't know what to expect. They're worried about their jobs. So be vulnerable, create safe environments for people to speak about their fears and share with them your feelings as well. Transparency, candidacy, really important. Right now, there's a heightened amount of fear, you know, to dispel this and to help people be less anxious, it's really important to talk to them. And don't be afraid to put that elephant out on the table. Keeping remote employees informed and in the loop reminds them not only that they're part of, you know, a larger organization, but also that your organization really has a vested interest in their relationship. So don't be afraid to talk to them about it. As we all know, happy employees are more likely to be engaged in their work. So keeping remote employees happy doesn't need to be overly complicated. Think about, what does it take to make you happy? Ask them what they may need and make sure they feel included and valued. You know, sometimes it's as simple as asking them how their day is going. What challenges are they facing at home? And how they're dealing with the angst and worry with COVID. If they've got a sick in-law, ask them about it. Ask them about their kids. Remember to leave some time at the beginning of your team calls for non-work items. Ask how, again, weekends were. For many of us, this is just common sense, you know, to check in and do that. However, when a crisis hits, especially for those of us who maybe tend to be sort of that A-type personalities, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm one of them. I have to remind myself to do this and, you know, to make those asks about how you're doing. Because sometimes I can get really focused on that agenda and go right into a meeting without taking the time to do that check-in. At Salopec, we're actually also organizing socials at the end of the day, the end of the week, or, you know, where there really is no agenda. And we take the conversation wherever it leads us. This was kind of hard for me at first because I'm an agenda type person, but I've learned to just go with the flow sometimes. This week we had a great time exploring at our meeting at the end of the day, different artwork that we're doing in our spare time. It was really, really enlightening. I learned a lot about my teammates, and it was fun. And I think we connected, and I think it's really going to help us as we continue to work remotely. We kind of learned new things about each other, which I think is going to help us in the long run. Another thought to keep happy engaged is, you know, just maybe talk to your team about additional online training opportunities that they might need, or look at upgrading the hardware to help them perform better. Be interested in them and how they're doing and how their work is looking and how they're coping. And this is ways we can do that. There are options for virtual get-togethers as well. We've learned that. We use Zoom, as I mentioned. Have lunch as a team virtually, and you know, really work at helping your people feel less isolated and promote that sense of belonging. Another thing I'd like to remind us as managers is to make sure we recognize remote workers for all the contributions that they're making to your organization. So recognition is always important, but I think now as we're working remotely, even more so. And don't stop there. Make recognition highly visible, like maybe even sharing something that somebody's done well with the rest of the team, or maybe, you know, maybe one of the owners of your businesses or a senior member of your team. Call out employees' big wins and empower the rest of your team to do the same. We have a consulting service manager really particularly good at this. And I don't think actually that there's a team meeting that doesn't go by that she doesn't do a shout out to someone on the team. And it always seems to be someone different on the team that she calls out. Feedback I've received from the team is that, you know, they really appreciate this type of support from her. You know, you may wonder, and I'm sure we all do at times, are your employees at home working productively? Are they meeting deadlines and meeting expectations? You know, remote workers need clear direction of what is expected in terms of, you know, objectives and goal setting, even more so than when you were in the office. Again, think about yourself. You're not, you're more motivated and engaged when you have a plan. At least I am. So think in terms of ensuring that your employees have a work plan and that they're focused on it. Leaders should really clarify and re-clarify goals and roles for their entire team. You know, moving to a home-based work is a great opportunity for a team to revisit the basics in order to ensure everyone understands team objectives. So, and individual roles. So make it a point that everybody is sharing. So they've got their own work plan, but they're also sharing other people's work plans so that they know what everybody's doing on the team. One benefit of working remotely is that it lets employees have some flexibility over their workday, especially now given the fact that, you know, there may be two parents at home working and there's kids. So you need to make sure that you're building in that flexibility. This challenge forces employees in many cases to balance their work duties with childcare, and perhaps employees will want to actually split up their working day and make up for time that they spend looking after the children during the day to work into the evenings if they need to. And I really encourage us to talk to our employees about this, what works best for them. So creating that flexibility and recognizing the fact that that's going to be maybe really important for some of our team members. At Salopec, we have an understanding. It doesn't matter when you do your work, actually, as long as the deliverables are met in a timely fashion for your teammates and your clients. Often, we will see one member of our team on her email at 2 a.m. in the morning, and we've come to expect it. It's when she works best. We also, though, know that we don't want to book an 8 a.m. meeting for her, so we respect that. Others may be early risers and desire to really pump out your project before noon. You know, let's get at it, let's get it done. So let them perform whatever without unnecessary restrictions. Give them that flexibility. Having said that, to support your employees, you may want to offer them assistance if you find they're working all the time and time management is a concern, because now they're working at home, they not only have their work priorities, but they've also competing priorities at home, such as, you know, taking care of the children, their household chores, etc. So have your antenna up to notice whether or not some of your people may need some help with time management. It may help to not worry as a manager so much about what is being done. Instead, concentrate on what's being accomplished. If the employee and the organization are meeting their goals, then great. If not, you may need to look into the situation further. It may need to be more about accomplishments versus the activities. One way to maintain communication without micromanaging is to allow the following question each week, and we do this as a team. When we get together for team meetings, we ask ourselves the question and we share, what have we done? What are we working on? And where do we need help? These three questions allow everybody on the team to take ownership of their own habits and their behaviors. And we've been doing this now for a long time, and it seems to work. Providing tools, tips, and trainings that can help remote workers better manage their time is a great motivator. It shows them that management cares, and it may help them in their path to higher efficiency and success. So adapting collaborative project management tools, Google it. There are lots of them out there. There's Asana, there's Trello, there's Wrike. So these tools can make a big difference. And I encourage you to think in terms of that and Google it. We've already talked about the importance of culture in fostering engagement. And as mentioned earlier, this can be a difficult thing to do when communicating virtually and or during a crisis. But building trust is a foundation and for any culture, and you have to build it and continue to nurture it. So again, bring your team together often virtually. As I mentioned earlier, we use Zoom, and it's looks like there's lots of platforms out there that you can do that. by connecting often, if it's virtually or just over the phone, really helps, foster that relationship and really leads to strong team cohesiveness. So giving remote employees continual access to business and project updates is also important. Tell them how the company's performing. And again, don't be afraid to talk about it. This helps remote workers understand how their role contributes to the company's overall success. And they're thinking about it today because we all know that businesses have been impacted by COVID. So it's best to talk to them about it. A sudden change in the practice of management can be hard on managers. All of a sudden, they're managing people, used to be at the office, now remotely. And they have to be held accountable. So this can be challenging for our managers, and we need to make sure that we're supporting them. Some may feel that they have to be physically present to be good coaches, and they may ensure that they can engage workers from a distance. So rather more negatively, there are also some managers out there that really don't trust workers that they can't see. So it's really important for us as managers of those managers to identify who they are and make sure that we're supporting them and giving them coaching. So support them both practically and emotionally during what may be a really tough transition for them. So invest in those managers and invest in their development if possible. Just remember, your managers always need to know you have their back. So more so than ever, they may be feeling insecure right now. So make sure you're supporting them. Individualization is really key. The best managers individualize their coaching for different members on their team. And when we're doing this remotely, we have to make sure we're doing this even with greater intentionality. Managers need to ask each team members to describe the conditions on which they perform best. Again, ask them. Ask what their concerns are about their workflow and their emotional responses to the situation. Take note and really address their concerns. For me personally, this sometimes is a challenge because back in the day, it was all about consistency in managing people. Back in the day, we thought, to be fair to everyone, we needed to be treating everybody the same. This is so not the case today. Absolutely not. And certainly not as a manager of remote employees. What works for one person may not work for another. So make sure you're paying attention to the individual needs of your people. One significant, so we're going to talk a little bit about performance management now. And one significant challenge of managing employees remotely is ensuring that they accomplish all their job duties on time, efficiently, and up to your organization standards. When you manage remote employees, you have a lot less insight into how work is getting done. This means you need to, I'm just getting a pop-up on my screen here. This means you need to be especially explicit about your expectations and setting objectives to your employees. So setting objectives is a key part of performance management for any employee. And those who work remotely will often need clearer objectives than those whose expectations and workplace can be managed in person. So, performance management, setting expectations, it's always been there. It's always been important, but even more so as we work remotely. Managers must make expectations crystal clear today, and crystal clear on the point that X is the work you should be doing, Y is the quality standard, and Z is the deadline. Make it that clear. Document expectations into work plans that are reviewed often. Without documentation, things are kind of forgotten, especially today when there's so much information coming at us. Weekly update meetings with your staff are really important. One-on-ones are also a good idea. Lots can happen in a week given the COVID crisis, so meeting and checking in on those expectations and where they are relative to them, really, really important. For some remote employees, performance management will just be a matter of ensuring that all their projects are completed and turned in on schedule and with good quality. However, for others, the measures are not as easily defined, and it's more important to be sort of engaged in maybe setting a number of hours a day that they have to get focused, quantifying in terms of days and weeks what they're doing and maybe journaling it. what was accomplished, and what impact did it have. In either case, tracking performance is difficult, but it's really, really important. And work with your employees to find a simple way to do it. We've talked about trust. It's hugely important. You're going to have to trust them, and that they're doing what they need to do with those regular check-ins and helping them keep on track. At Salopec, regular feedback is achieved for us through individual work plans. So we're using work plans. And work plans flow actually from our strategy and our business planning. And so we have strategy, we have business plans, and then we have individual accountabilities. Really, though, they're pretty simple. And what we do is we identify for each individual on the team, what are their objectives, what action items are they taking to land on their objectives, and what are the timelines. We actually refer to them often. They're working documents, and they're also constantly changing. It works well in the remote environment, and we share our work plans, as I mentioned before, in order so other people can see what we're working on and what projects we are. A lot of times we work together, so it's really important to share those work plans. The another thing that we do that can help us stay focused on who's doing what is that we share our calendars and we show team members what we're doing throughout the day. And this tends to work well. This allows us to check in with each other if we can contribute to a piece of work that a colleague might be doing. It also helps us to understand how and when other members on the team are actually working, spending time with their family or exercising. So we're pretty transparent in our calendars, and that's a good thing. This understanding, in my opinion, really helps us to be respectful of each other's time and as a team. So I want to talk a little bit about goal setting and clear objectives. And the goal setting clear objectives through your work plan really will improve engagement and morale and productivity. I've seen it, it works. And it really helps keep everybody on the same page. With respect to reward and recognition, this is an important aspect of performance management and should not actually be overlooked, particularly, when we're working remotely. And in today's teams, we have a lot of people that are younger, millennials, and reward and recognition are so important to them. So research has shown us that our millennials are motivated by recognition. And millennials, they want to be recognized in some form at least once a month. And I'd like to suggest, as we work remotely, this should really be at least once a week. And just even calling out an informal high five in a team meeting or a great job is really, really important. Other ways that you can do reward and recognition remotely is just a thank you email with a copy to, other members of the team or a senior manager. Maybe just even doing something like do a meal delivery to somebody when they've done a really good job to their house. Or maybe on a Friday afternoon, tell them to book it off, no work, or another thing you might think about doing is giving them a gift certificate, like maybe to a spa or something when this craziness of COVID is over and they can enjoy some me time. So think of things like that and get a little bit creative of how you recognize your team, but just make sure you're recognizing them. Lastly, look at this as an opportunity, really, when it comes to performance management, to really improve your current performance management processes. Some of these things that we're going to really get good at remotely are really going to help us when we go back and go back into the office. So take it as an opportunity to start to really enhance maybe what you had in place before. And hopefully this new way of managing will actually carry through then when we go back to the office. And there are many, many benefits to your performance management processes and making it fit for your specific needs and your specific needs of your employees. So I'm going to actually turn it over now to Cindy. And Cindy, I'm going to get you to move forward with health and wellness. Are you there?
Yes, yeah. Thanks, Janet. So in order to have a healthy business in the current environment, it's really important to look out for the health and well-being of your employees, including their mental health. So this can become difficult as your employees begin to work from home while the risk of COVID-19 is still present. In terms of stats, so stats from Canadian Mental Health Association state that in any given year, 1 in 5 people, 1 in 5 people in Canada will personally experience a mental health problem or illness. And we know that unaddressed depression in the workplace, or in this case at home, can cause employee morale to suffer and can make your employees feel alone or isolated. And for remote employees, these feelings of isolation, as we've mentioned before, may already be amplified, especially in a time of social distancing. So another stat from CMHA shows that around 1 in 4 Canadians aren't satisfied with the number of friends they have. So at a time when people are being asked to stay home and avoid social activities, of course, these feelings can only increase. And so loneliness can definitely take a toll on people, and it can lead to issues like stress-related sick leave and cardiovascular health complications. There are, however, some strategies that you can use to help your remote workers stay healthy and happy while they are working from home. One of these things is to emphasize interaction and connection. So you'll want to encourage all your employees to help each other feel included in your new remote community. Don't leave it all on the individual team members to forge connections or continue building their connections, but rather aim to make these interactions a real priority for all your employees in the company. You can implement a buddy system if needed. That way they are connecting every day in a peer relationship. And again, thanks to technology, there are many strategies you can use to help remote employees feel less isolated. There's apps like Slack and WhatsApp. They can be utilized to create group channels where your workers can communicate with each other. And it can be really informal, is to discuss maybe the news, maybe sharing recipes or talking about some fitness ideas. You really want to encourage your employees to communicate socially on these channels as well as for work purposes. And also encouraging employees to use video chats with each other is great. I know for me personally, during our team meetings, which are done through Zoom, we see each other, and like sometimes just seeing the smiling faces of coworkers, it really does make me feel happier and more connected with them. And it also forces me to wash my hair and put on some makeup. So next, you want to make sure that you're checking in regularly and addressing any concerns that your employees may have. While COVID-19 is at the forefront of everyone's minds, employees might not reach out for help as readily. And you want to listen to your employees' anxieties and concerns and empathize with their struggles. So even just asking a simple question to each employee about how they are finding the remote work situation is working for them can elicit important information that you might not otherwise hear. And of course, this is easier said than done. I know that many organizations are very large and managers may find it difficult to check in regularly with so many employees. Actually, I'll ask Janet to speak to this from a leader's perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. So we have a team of 20, and so I can't, and that's relatively small. I'm thinking even for some that are managing people. But what we do is I have a consulting service manager, and between the two of us, we divide up the team so that one of us is at least checking at least once a week on a one-on-one with all of our team. So we divide it up and sort of divide and conquer.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. And you also want to consider encouraging remote employees to forge connections outside of the workplace. So there's networking, with other remote workers or freelancers. This is a great way for them to not only interact socially, but to also expand their professional networks. And LinkedIn is great for this. And also if employees have coaches or mentors that they've been working with in the past, encourage them to keep these connections going. So while social distancing is still being practiced, I would suggest employees maybe even look at virtual chat rooms like Google Hangouts or message boards. That way they can just connect with others and they're not missing out on that piece. You can also provide resources for them about online support groups if they're finding it very difficult. And this can help them deal with a variety of issues. It's really important to encourage breaks. When an employee is already at home, it sometimes can be hard to find that important work-life balance. Getting outside to take a walk or completing a workout is a great way to stay healthy and relieve stress. I know that personally, I have found it very helpful to keep up as much as I can with workouts. My workouts have definitely moved online, and so I'm lucky if I can fit in 1 or 2 per week, but I do try to supplement it with walks outside. And I just find that getting out for some fresh air, particularly after a long day, it's very helpful. And so I would encourage you to talk to your employees about that as well. There's many ways that employees might take their breaks away from their computer, but the important thing is that they do, and that they take this time to reset, regroup, and relax. And of course, it's going to be tough for people to take breaks when they have a heavy workload. So just make sure that you are assigning realistic timelines and achievable goals. And if you're in doubt, just check in and ask. And if there are conflicts facing your employee from working at home and caretaking, potentially of sick family members or children, consider approving employees' requests for reducing their hours or potentially job sharing if the employee feels that that might work best. Helping employees balance their conflicting demands will definitely help them maintain their health and wellness during the crisis. Be sure to continually check in with employees to see how they're doing ergonomically. So you want to ask them about their home work environment. Maybe they need some equipment and you can allow them to pick it up from their offices just to make sure that their working from home is comfortable and it's ergonomically fit. In fact, if you have a health and safety employee on your team, encourage them to check in with each of your employees just to ensure that they have the appropriate ergonomics for their home work areas. And if you don't have a health and safety rep, you could send employees resources on appropriate home work setups. I actually had found on the Government of Alberta website, under OH&S, there's a resource portal, and there's a great resource. It's called Working from Home During the Pandemic. And it provides some tips around setting up your home office and ensuring that it's ergonomically fit. And I encourage you to visit that website and also review the resources listed there for yourself and also for your employees. Lastly, and most importantly, provide resources for mental health services. Unfortunately, there is still a stigma associated with mental health issues existing in the world. Many people suffering from these symptoms don't want to talk about them the same way they may want to talk about a physical illness. So a solution is to offer remote employees the help they need by providing resources for mental health services. I found that the Canadian Mental Health Association online is a great place to start. They have tons of resources there. And also, if your company has an EFAP program available, encourage employees to reach out for help and support, and they can usually access these services anytime. Another great resource I found was Great West Life. They've teamed up with CMHA to provide free online resources for workplace strategies for mental health. I would highly encourage you to visit Great West Life's website. Specifically, it's the Center for Mental Health in the Workplace section. And here you'll find free practical tools and resources designed to help Canadian employers with the prevention, intervention, and management of workplace mental health issues. And these resources are available in English and French, and they're available to anyone, anywhere, and at no cost. Another option is AHS's text-based service, which was put into place in response to COVID-19. This service gives Albertans encouragement and it eases feelings of stress or anxiety as they respond to recent challenges. Albertans can text 393939, and in response, they will receive daily text messages on how to focus on healthy thinking or actions to help them manage their mood. Also on AHS's website, they have an area under information for patients and families. And if you tab down to addiction and mental health, there's a section called Help in Tough Times. And here I found there was great online resources for coping with COVID-19 from a mental health perspective. So to summarize how you can support the psychological health and safety of your employees, the CMHA recommends employers consider the following 6 steps during this time of crisis. So A, have a plan. Let employees know that you will stay well informed and that you can answer any questions they may have, such as what happens if I get sick? What if my family member contracts the virus? In fact, it may be helpful to compile a frequently asked questions document or a web page, and directing employees to it often would be great. Next, you want to communicate, share, and be open. So we all know that worry and fear tend to increase in the absence of up-to-date information. So let your employees know that they can expect regular updates from you. We recommend that you communicate even if the situation remains unchanged in regards to reopening, business operations, that sort of thing. Next, empathize. So share, you know that it's stressful, and recognize that it's okay to be anxious. and remind your employees of the resources that are available for any of those that are experiencing stress. Reassure best that you can, as best as you can. So you want to refer to reports indicating that most people who become infected with a virus will recover, and always direct them to reliable sources of COVID info. There's a ton of information online, and it's not always accurate. So directing them to reliable sources is definitely makes sense. And understanding. So recognize that when stress has become unmanageable for employees, it can lead to anxiety and even panic. So some employees may need mental health days or medical intervention in order to cope. Encourage your employees to practice self-care activities. This could be relaxing exercises, listening to relaxing music, or taking regular breaks. And lastly, recognize that it's not quite business as usual. Know that work will be impacted, work will slow down, and just reassure staff that expectations will shift accordingly, and that's okay. Assure them that they will get through this. So shifting gears, let's take a look now at what employees need to do to help them navigate the move towards working from home. So this information would help anyone on the call that is working from home, and we would encourage you to share this information with your employees as well. So these are just helpful tips to ensure the successful assimilation to working from home. One of the most important things you can do is maintain your routine. So you want to make sure you are going to bed and waking up at the same time as you normally would. You want to make sure you are dressed for your day. So get out of your pajamas, as tempting as it is to stay in your PJs all day, especially when you don't have any video calls. It definitely can help if you get ready for the day. It'll just help you be a bit more productive. Try to stick as closely as possible to your pre-COVID daily routine. So stick to whatever you did before, stick to your eating routine plan as well. Try not to eat, on a whim every hour. Just try to stick as much as you can to your pre-COVID daily routine. It's more important than ever now to make sure that you're eating healthy, well-balanced meals and just keeping up with your regular eating habits. All of these things will ensure that you're taking care of yourself and keeping yourself strong physically and mentally. You also want to establish a dedicated area as your workspace. It could be a room or just a table, but dedicate a space that is just your workspace, and try not to use that space for personal activities if at all possible. You want to avoid using your bed or couch as your workspace, as they won't be effective over the long run ergonomically. And if you have any questions, just work with your employer just to make sure you have all the equipment and technology that you need to complete your work. Focus. So don't get distracted. Technology is great, but try to stay on task and away from social media as much as possible. Don't get sidetracked by those funny cat videos or hourly news. This was definitely one of another one of my biggest challenges the first week I was working from home, because I kept getting a ton of notifications, whether it be WhatsApp, Facebook, news notifications, and it just really made it difficult to focus on my work, and it really aggravated my fear and angst towards the crisis. So what I've done now is actually I've muted all of my notifications to avoid that distraction. Next, you want to schedule your work tasks. So phone calls, online calls in your calendar hour by hour. This will definitely help you keep focused and on track. You also want to make sure you stay busy. So it's your job, right? And make sure that it may even mean just taking more work on or coming up with projects for yourself. And as a virtual worker, you don't have the ability to have casual conversations. So you want to ensure you stay connected. So we are what we share. So go above and beyond in communicating what you're doing by writing comprehensive but succinct messages and just promptly responding to others, speaking transparently about needs and feelings, and just proactively asking questions. Next, you want to ensure you're balancing work with life. Remember to take breaks away from your workspace and communicate any workload issues with your manager. Given we are all in a time of significant evolution when it comes to the world of work, it's even more important to be mindful of how you are contributing to your experience. So focus on your purpose. Having a clear purpose that you can focus your energy and attention on has really shown to help in times of stress. So remind yourself of the bigger picture and how you're helping your organization and potentially clients succeed. Be kind. In a time when so many people are on edge and scared about tomorrow, it's essential to exercise kindness in all your interactions. Remember that stress can make us behave in ways that are less than ideal. So if there was ever a time to go out of your way with a kind word or two, or to respond to anger or frustration with love and support, it would be now. Practice gratitude. Even in times of high stress, practicing gratitude has shown to reduce stress and depressive symptoms. One neat idea that I had come across was the use of a gratitude journal. So at the end of every day, simply write down what you appreciated about your day. And it could be anything from a peaceful work at home environment where you got to all your tasks, or a colleague who was extra helpful or responsive that day. So when you take time to write this down, you're consciously focusing your energy and attention on the good rather than letting your brain default to things that might be more scary or stressful. Now that you've learned some tips and tricks around ensuring your work from home situation is as ideal for you as possible, we will give you some quick tips to ensure that your home video conference calls are the best that they can be.
Cindy, can I make a
Yes.
suggestion? In light of time, why don't we just give these to the participants in our PowerPoint presentation, and it'll free us some time to answer some questions.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Okay, so we'll just go to your last slide then, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, sure. So looking forward, 2020 and beyond, what to keep in mind as we move into the future in this uncharted territory. So we just want to encourage you to review your policies using a much broader lens. So update them as necessary to include public health preparedness for now and possibly into the future. Include a policy on working from home under exceptional circumstances if this is not your norm. Pay specific attention to OH&S policies. Consider completing hazard assessments for your remote workers. And we're all obviously going to come out of this finding ourselves in a new business reality. So while that might cause concern, I would say prioritize further planning and action. And the priority really is the well-being of employees and everyone in the global community. So just be prepared to provide resources for employees when they need it. And flexibility and cost savings benefits of working remotely are potentially the future of our workforce. And the circumstances of COVID are really just catapulting it to all of our conversations. And it's really forcing us to look at how we do our work and looking at alternatives to our regular work environments. Thank you. So we can open it up for questions now.
Thanks, Janet and Cindy. That was a lot of information and great. I'd like to add, I think we made right from the start, I think we should have never called it social distancing. I think we should have called it physical distancing because I think we still have to be social and encourage people to talk to with each other. It's important during these times to be there for each other. I do have some questions, and if everyone else has questions, feel free to type them in and I will get to as many as we can. A reminder, the presentation and the video will be available hopefully later today. And also Tuesday next week, to kind of follow in with this, we have a presentation from a different group about the importance of e-learning and how to bring it to your organization and how to help your employees with that. So I would encourage you to sign up for that. So first question, can we stay engaged and mentally support staff that have been temporarily laid off?
Sorry, Joe, can you repeat the question again?
Can we stay engaged and mentally support staff that have been temporarily laid off?
Oh, okay. Cindy, do you want me to take that?
Sure.
Yeah, I think we can, because it's right from the letter that you send out to them. Set the expectation that you're going to stay in touch with them, and then send them updates. The way to access some of our programs, the government support programs right now, can be confusing. So one way you can stay in touch with your people that you've laid off is give them tips on how to access some of the programs and send them updates and information. So definitely really, really important to stay, just emails to them. Yeah.
Okay, great. Are employers at increased liability risk for staff mental health issues with regard to the increased use of remote web-based communication tools such as Zoom, other things? They added, I personally feel burned out using these remote connection tools regularly.
Are they at higher risk? I'm not Cindy, yeah.
I would say, I don't know if I would use the word higher risk. I mean, definitely the risk is higher in the sense that you might have more occurrence of mental health issues in the current scenario. So I think just really being mindful of not just the work tasks, but also being mindful of employees' mental health and providing resources. I mean, really, that's what we're here for, and that's what I was encouraging everyone. Like, it's so important to be regularly checking in and just making sure everybody is managing okay. It's a tough time, and employers are going to have to really adjust sort of what they were doing in the past and look at those resources that they can provide their employees.
Yeah, I agree. Please share the benefits of using video in virtual meetings. I am finding some leaders not supporting the use of video.
Honestly, I think probably I might have been guilty of that before going into COVID. I couldn't see what's the importance, but boy, now that we've started using it, you can really see visually when somebody is stressed or when they're needing extra help, right? And so that eye to eye is critical, right? And you can tell by just looking at somebody sometimes whether or not they need extra support. So I really encourage, if you're doubtful, try it. It's really important. The face-to-face. Cindy, would you agree?
100%. And I really think it helps with engagement too, right? I think just seeing people's faces and talking through things, I think you're way more upfront and you talk about issues, and it's just the engagement piece is critical. So I think video is definitely the way to go. I was also one of those people that was very hesitant and kind of drawn back by it, but I find it's very helpful from that social interaction piece as well. So I would definitely encourage everyone to do it.
Zoe, or Cindy, just to build on that, is when you do a video conferencing too, you also have to sort of get yourself ready for a video conference too, right? So it makes you, to Cindy's pointer, get up, get out of your pajamas, like act the part. I've got work to do, right? And so knowing that you got to go on a video sort of helps with that. Would you agree, Cindy?
100%. It totally does. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when you mentioned getting in the routine and staying in a routine, that is key. And I think also managers need to get out and take that break as well, and focus on their mental health too, because managers, business owners are under a lot of stress as well as we all try to survive through this. Anyone else have any questions? I don't see any right now. Did you guys want to add anything else before I close off?
No, I don't think so. We'll send the PowerPoint presentation over to you, and you can share it. And if anybody has any questions, our contact information will be on the slides. Yeah,
and I would strongly encourage anyone that has any questions or needs some assistance. ESA uses Salopec for some of our HR requirements and needs, and I'd highly recommend them. They're great to work with. And I'd like to thank Janet and Cindy again for doing this today, and Salopec and Associates. Really appreciate it. Everyone stay safe and have a great weekend. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Zoe. Joe. Bye-bye.
Take care.